The Prime Minister, writing in The Sun today, said his latest offer to the EU represents him jumping to an island in the middle of a river. He appealed to the EU to jump over from its side and join him. Boris Island then, or Eel Pie Island, West London for our purposes, represents his latest Brexit offer. The two residents we spoke to.
Because he's the only man that's actually put his foot down and he'll stick his ground. Nobody else I don't think can trust, they give in. So I'm a Boris man all the way.
I think he's quite courageous, and I think if he manages to pull it off, it'll be amazing.
Ahead of crucial talks this week and a summit next week, hints from the government today that there was a little flexibility in the offing. First up, on the issue of consent in Northern Ireland. In the new offer, Northern Ireland would remain in the UK customs territory, but would stay in the EU single market. The Northern Ireland Assembly would vote on that every 4 years. At the moment, that would mean an effective DUP veto.
So,
Got a sec, Channel 4 News?
So
Today, the Brexit secretary rushing off to Holland after the Sunday politics programmes hinted that the mechanism for achieving consent among Northern Irish parties may be up for debate.
now the mechanism, we've set up proposals in our legal text. We can obviously, as part of the intense negotiations in the coming days, discuss that mechanism. But the key issue is the principle of consent to any regulatory zone.
Now, for some, including some in the EU, this may seem academic, given that Stormont can't even vote to show up for work at the moment. The other dispatch from Boris Island today. The Brexit secretary said the government was talking to Labour MPs about backing the deal, and that MPs could be asked to vote for the proposal in Parliament before the EU summit on the 17th of October.
Well, the Prime Minister, as you know, Andrew, was asked this question by Frank Field in the House of Commons this week on Thursday, and he said that he would consider that, and he will do in due course. Well, we are considering it.
A little political gymnastics will be welcomed in Brussels and Dublin, but still an overwhelming sense that the new proposal is thin on the sort of detail that would push it over the line.
It's the problems that we have already faced for a long time. If you propose technical solutions, you have to at least give a hint how these solutions could look like also technically. This is still very much in the vague.
And all the while the clock ticks down. A possible early Commons vote on the new offer on Tuesday, then Parliament prorogued the week after the Queen's speech. That same week, the all-important EU summit.
Porrick O'Brien with that report. And the Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte spoke with the Prime Minister yesterday, and after the call said important questions remain about the British proposals. Well, I'm joined now by the Dutch MP Anna Mulder, who's the spokesman on EU affairs for Mark Rutte's People's Party for Freedom and Democracy. Welcome to the programme. So your Prime Minister has spoken to Boris Johnson. He's talking about these important questions that remain. What are they?
Well, the main question is what will happen to the border between Ireland and Northern Ireland. Will there be a physical infrastructure or not? That's the main question.
And you still don't have clarity on that?
Well, I have the feeling that with the new proposals from Prime Minister Johnson, there will be a border infrastructure. And this is not something we want.
So, in terms of the tone, we've heard Boris Johnson write in several newspapers that he wants the EU to meet him halfway, and if they don't, we're leaving anyway. Stephen Barclay, the Brexit secretary, has been taking a more conciliatory tone, talking about the EU showing creativity and flexibility. So what do you make of these two things?
I think this is all about, it's a lose-lose situation. So we have to limit the damage. So it's very difficult. I think all EU member states are behind Ireland. Nobody wants to have a border infrastructure. So I think the British have to come up with something more than this.
Do you think the EU will move at all in terms of its position on the border?
Well, I don't think so. It's one of the main concerns of the European Union. Nobody wants a border. It's the Irish identity. Nobody wants to have the troubles back. So we need a solution, a real solution. And so far I haven't seen it.
Do you think it's possible that any of the EU 27 might break rank? I mean, there's been speculation about Hungary.
No.
Not possible?
Totally not. No. The EU, Ireland is a member. Britain is about to leave, so the members support each other because they know if there's another issue, another member state is a victim, they need the support of the other members. So I think the UK is underestimating this, that the EU is behind its member states.
The UK is underestimating how united the 27 are.
I think so. for 3 years now.
There is the additional complication of Parliament here. If opposition MPs in Parliament came round to an idea that Boris Johnson was proposing, do you think that would help the EU get on board?
Well, it would help if there's a majority for any deal, but so far we have only seen that people agree to disagree. They don't want a no deal, but there's no majority, whatever solution, and that makes things very, very complicated.
You know, Mr. Mulder, the Dutch are respected for being very direct, so I have to ask you, what do you really think of Boris Johnson?
My English teacher said I have to make indirect statements, but his credibility is quite low. He supported the deal once, he rejected it 2 times, he wrote 2 letters before the referendum, one to remain, one to leave. So he's a little bit of an opportunistic person, I'm afraid to say so.
So there's a trust issue there.
It is a credibility issue. In his career, he was sacked by his paper because he was spreading lies about Brussels. It's not very helpful, I'm sorry to say.
That was very direct indeed.
I'm sorry.
Anna Mulder, thank you very much indeed.